The dust of the trail still clung to Beau Pritchard's skin as he rode into Angel's Camp, California, in the late summer of 1873. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold that seemed to set the small mining town ablaze. His stallion, Midnight, trotted wearily beneath him, both man and beast exhausted from the 3-day journey from Sacramento. "Almost there, boy," Beau murmured, patting the horse's sweaty neck. "Just need to find that ranch Mr. Holbrook mentioned." The Rocking H Ranch lay just beyond the town limits, a modest spread of land owned by Jeremiah Holbrook, an old friend of Beau's father. After years of drifting from ranch to ranch across Texas and Nevada, working cattle drives and breaking horses, the 26-year-old cowboy had finally decided to settle in one place for longer than a season. Jeremiah's letter offering steady work had arrived at the perfect time. Angel's Camp had grown considerably since the gold rush days. Though no longer swarming with hopeful prospectors, the town maintained a bustling air with its wooden boardwalks lined with shops, saloons, and a hotel. Beau guided Midnight past curious onlookers, his tall frame and weather-beaten Stetson marking him instantly as an outsider. The Rocking H Ranch came into view just as twilight began to settle across the valley. It was larger than Beau had expected, with a handsome 2-story farmhouse, a sprawling barn, and several outbuildings scattered across the property. A split-rail fence encircled a corral where several horses grazed peacefully. As Beau approached, a stocky man with gray-streaked hair and a thick mustache emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. Jeremiah Holbrook's face broke into a wide grin when he spotted the rider. Beau Pritchard. "By God, you're the spitting image of your father," Jeremiah called, striding forward to greet him. Beau dismounted, his boots raising small puffs of dust as they hit the ground. He extended a calloused hand. "Mr. Holbrook, it's good to finally meet you. Call me Jeremiah, son. Your pa and I rode together too many years for formalities." The older man clasped Beau's hand firmly. "How is the old coot? He passed last winter," Beau said quietly. "Pneumonia took him." Jeremiah's smile faltered. "I'm sorry to hear that. William was a good man. One of the best cowboys I ever knew." Beau nodded, the familiar pang of grief making his chest tight. "Thank you for the opportunity here. I appreciate it more than you know." "Any son of William Pritchard is welcome at my table," Jeremiah said, clapping Beau on the shoulder. "Let's get your horse settled, and then I'll show you where you'll be bunking. My wife Martha has supper nearly ready, and she doesn't take kindly to cold food." After seeing to Midnight's needs fresh water, a generous portion of oats, and a thorough brushing, Beau followed Jeremiah to a small but comfortable cabin situated a short distance from the main house. It had clearly been recently cleaned, with fresh linens on the narrow bed and a small vase of wildflowers on the rough-hewn table. "One of the hands moved to Oregon last month," Jeremiah explained. "This cabin's yours now. Wash up and come to the house in 15 minutes. Martha's eager to meet you." Left alone, Beau unpacked his meager belongings: a few changes of clothes, his father's pocket watch, a dog-eared copy of Moby Dick, and the tools of his trade: rope, spurs, and a well-worn saddle knife. He splashed cold water on his face from the basin, ran damp fingers through his sandy brown hair, and changed into his cleanest shirt. Dinner at the Holbrook house was a pleasant affair. Martha, a plump, rosy-cheeked woman with kind eyes, served a feast of roasted chicken, potatoes, and fresh baked bread that made Beau realize how long he'd subsisted on trail rations and mediocre saloon fare. The Holbrook's teenage son, Timothy, peppered Beau with questions about his adventures on the cattle drives, while their daughter Abigail, a pretty girl of about 17, watched the newcomer with shy interest. "The ranch has been in Martha's family for 3 generations," Jeremiah explained between bites. "Started as a small homestead during the gold rush and grew from there. We run about 300 head of cattle now, plus the horses. It's a fine spread," Beau said sincerely. "We've been blessed," Martha agreed, "though things haven't been easy lately. The drought last summer hit us hard, and then there's the trouble with the railroad men." Jeremiah shot his wife a warning glance, but she continued. "They're trying to buy up land all through this valley for their new line. Some neighbors have sold, but most of us are holding firm." "The Central Pacific has deep pockets," Jeremiah added grimly. "And not all their representatives play fair. But enough of that tonight. You'll hear all about our troubles soon enough." After helping Martha clear the dishes despite her protests, Beau excused himself, the fatigue of travel finally catching up with him. The night air had cooled considerably as he walked back to his cabin, the sound of crickets and the occasional distant howl of a coyote his only companions. Sleep came quickly, but dawn arrived even faster. Beau was awakened by a rooster's insistent crowing just as the first pale light seeped through his window. He dressed quickly, splashed water on his face, and headed to the barn to begin his first day of work. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Beau fell easily into the rhythm of ranch life, rising before dawn to feed and water the livestock, mending fences, breaking young horses, and driving cattle to fresh pasture. The other ranch hands Joe, a taciturn Mexican vaquero with unmatched roping skills, and Frank, a grizzled old-timer who'd been with the Holbrooks for decades, accepted Beau readily into their ranks once they saw his work ethic and skill with horses. Jeremiah proved to be a fair employer, working alongside his men and sharing meals with them as often as not. The tension Martha had mentioned about the railroad became clearer as Beau overheard conversations about land agents making increasingly aggressive offers to neighboring ranches. Some families had already packed up and moved on, their homesteads now marked with Central Pacific surveying stakes. One evening in early October, Beau was returning from a long day of rounding up stray cattle when he noticed an unfamiliar horse tethered outside the Holbrook house, a fine chestnut mare with a quality saddle. Curious, he led Midnight to the barn, intent on caring for his mount before investigating the visitor. The barn was quiet and dim, lit only by the fading daylight filtering through the slatted walls. As Beau led Midnight to his stall, he heard a soft rustling from above, in the hayloft. Most likely a raccoon or a barn cat, he thought, but caution from years on the trail made him reach for the knife at his belt. "Who's up there?" he called, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. Silence answered him, but the quality of it seemed tense, expectant. Beau secured Midnight in his stall and approached the ladder leading to the hayloft. "I know someone's there," he said, his hand on the first rung. "Come down or I'm coming up." After a moment's hesitation, a woman's voice, barely above a whisper, responded, "Please don't." Intrigued and concerned, Beau climbed the ladder anyway, emerging into the sweet-smelling hay of the loft. At first, he saw nothing but shadowy bales and dust motes dancing in the last rays of sunlight streaming through the open loft door. Then, a slight movement caught his eye. She was pressed against the far wall, partially hidden behind a stack of hay bales. In the dim light, Beau could make out a young woman with wide, frightened eyes and hair the color of wheat at harvest. She was dressed in a riding habit of good quality, though it was now covered in hay and dust. When she saw him, she pressed a finger to her lips in a desperate gesture. "Please," she whispered, "please don't tell anyone I'm here." Beau remained at the top of the ladder, not wanting to frighten her further. "I work for the Holbrooks," he said gently. "Are you in some kind of trouble, miss?" The woman hesitated, then nodded slightly. "My name is Olivia Raynaud. She broke off at the sound of voices below, her face paling in the dim light. "Miss Raynaud." A man's voice called from outside the barn. "Your father is growing impatient. Where have you wandered off to?" The young woman clutched at Beau's arm. "Please," she begged. "I cannot go with them. Not yet." Beau made a split-second decision, nodding once before descending the ladder. He emerged from the barn just as two men entered, one in an expensive suit that marked him as a city man, the other wearing the practical garb of a ranch hand but with a gun belt strapped prominently around his waist. "Evening, gentlemen," Beau said casually, tipping his hat. "Can I help you?" The suited man stepped forward, his face pinched with annoyance. "I'm looking for Miss Olivia Raynaud. Her horse is here, but she seems to have vanished. Have you seen her?" Beau scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Can't say that I have. Just got back myself from the North Pasture." "Is she a guest of the Holbrooks?" "She's my daughter," the man said stiffly. "I'm Lawrence Raynaud, representing Central Pacific Railroad. We're here to discuss business with Mr. Holbrook, and my daughter insisted on accompanying me, only to disappear the moment we arrived." Understanding dawned on Beau. The railroad man. No wonder the girl was hiding. "Well, sir, she's not in the barn. I just tended to my horse and there's no one else in there. Perhaps she went to the creek. Ladies sometimes like to admire the wildflowers." Raynaud frowned, clearly not believing him entirely. "Phillips, check the barn thoroughly. I'll look around the house again." The second man, Phillips, nodded and pushed past Beau into the barn. Beau followed, his heart pounding. If Phillips climbed up to the hayloft. "I already told you she's not in here," Beau said, his voice harder now. "And I don't appreciate being called a liar." Phillips turned, his hand drifting to his gun. "I have my orders, Cowboy. Stay out of my way." Beau stepped closer, using his height advantage to loom over the shorter man. "This is Holbrook property and I work for Mr. Holbrook. You don't give the orders here." For a tense moment, the two men stared at each other. Then Phillips sneered and turned away. "Not worth my time. The girl's probably just throwing another of her tantrums." He stalked out of the barn, calling back to Raynaud. "Nothing in here, sir. Just hay and horses." Beau waited until both men were out of sight before climbing back up to the hayloft. Olivia was exactly where he'd left her, her face white with fear. "They're gone for now," he told her, keeping his voice low. "But they'll be back. Why are you hiding from your own father?" Olivia swallowed hard. "He's not really my father, not anymore, not since my mother died and he—" She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. "He's forcing me to marry his business partner, a man 3 times my age, to secure a railway contract. The wedding is set for next week. I cannot do it." Beau frowned. "So you ran away. Where were you planning to go?" "My aunt lives in San Francisco," Olivia explained. "She wrote to me in secret, offering a home if I could reach her. I took my chance when father insisted I accompany him today. I thought I could hide until nightfall, then continue my journey." She twisted her hands together anxiously. "Please, I know you don't know me, but I beg you not to tell him where I am. He'll lock me away until the wedding day." Something in her desperate expression touched Beau deeply. He'd seen enough of the world to recognize genuine fear, and this young woman was truly terrified. "I won't tell him," Beau promised. "But you can't stay in this hayloft. They'll search here eventually. Let me think." Outside, they could hear Raynaud's voice growing more agitated as the search continued. Beau made a quick decision. "Stay here for now. Don't make a sound. I'll come back after dark and help you get to your aunt in San Francisco." Relief flooded Olivia's face. "Thank you. I have money I can pay you for your trouble." Beau shook his head. Keep your money, you'll need it. He started down the ladder, then paused. How old are you, Miss Raynaud? 20, she replied. And too old to be treated like property to be bartered away. Beau nodded grimly. Stay put, I'll be back. The next few hours were among the longest of Beau's life. He went about his evening chores as normally as possible, all the while keeping an ear out for any news about the missing Olivia. Jeremiah and Martha Holbrook were clearly uncomfortable with Raynaud's presence, their usual warm hospitality strained to the breaking point. The man's offering twice what this land is worth, Jeremiah confided to Beau as they checked the horses one last time before supper. Says the railroad needs this particular stretch for their new line. Are you considering it? Beau asked carefully. Jeremiah sighed heavily. Martha would never forgive me. This land is her heritage, but Raynaud made it clear that if we don't sell willingly, they have ways of making things difficult. He glanced toward the house, where lights blazed from every window. They're staying the night. Raynaud's convinced his daughter is hiding somewhere on our property. Beau's stomach nodded. Is that so? Martha set them up in the guest rooms, Jeremiah continued. Though I'd rather put them in the chicken coop, truth be told. He clapped Beau on the shoulder. Come on. Martha insists you eat with us tonight rather than with the hands. Says she wants to present a united front. The dinner was a tense affair. Lawrence Raynaud dominated the conversation with talk of progress and opportunity, barely disguising his threats behind a veneer of civility. His companion, Phillips, said little but watched everyone with calculating eyes. Beau ate quickly and excused himself as soon as possible, claiming exhaustion from the day's work. Back in his cabin, Beau gathered supplies, food from his own stores, a canteen of fresh water, a spare blanket. He waited until well after midnight, when the ranch was silent and dark, before slipping out and making his way to the barn. Olivia was still awake, huddled in the hay with her arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up with frightened eyes as Beau climbed into the loft. I thought you might not come, she whispered. I gave my word, Beau replied simply. He handed her the bundle of supplies. Your father and his man are staying the night. We need to get you away from here before dawn. Olivia nodded, quickly sorting through the items he'd brought. Thank you for the food. I was getting rather hungry. While she ate, Beau explained his plan. There's a stagecoach that passes through town at noon tomorrow, headed for Sacramento. From there, you can take the train to San Francisco. I'll get you to town before daybreak and find you somewhere safe to wait. Why are you helping me? Olivia asked suddenly, pausing with a piece of bread halfway to her lips. You don't know me. You could lose your position here. Beau was silent for a moment, considering. My mother was forced to marry my father, he finally said. She was 17, he was 35. Her family arranged it for financial reasons. She never loved him, though she tried to be a good wife. He looked away, into the darkness. She died when I was 12, and I always wondered if she might have lived a happier, longer life if she'd had the courage to run, as you're doing. Olivia reached out impulsively and touched his hand. I'm sorry about your mother. Beau cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the personal turn the conversation had taken. We should go soon. Can you ride? Since I was 6, Olivia answered, a hint of pride in her voice. Good. I'll saddle 2 horses midnight for me and a gentle mare named Daisy for you. We'll take the back trails to town. Moving with practiced stealth, Beau helped Olivia down from the hayloft and led her to the far end of the barn where the tack room was located. Working by moonlight filtering through the windows, he quickly saddled the horses. Stay here, he whispered, handing her the reins to Daisy. I need to leave a note for Jeremiah. I won't mention you, but I can't just disappear without explanation. In his cabin, Beau hastily scrawled a note explaining that he'd received word of an emergency and had to ride to town, promising to return by midday. It wasn't completely a lie. Helping a young woman escape forced marriage seemed emergency enough. When he returned to the barn, Olivia had mounted Daisy and adjusted her riding habit as best she could. In the silver moonlight, with her golden hair tumbling over her shoulders and her chin held high, she looked like a painting come to life, beautiful and defiant. Beau swallowed hard, suddenly aware of a fluttering sensation in his chest that had nothing to do with the danger of their midnight escape. He mounted Midnight and led the way out of the barn, keeping to the shadows of the outbuildings until they reached the tree line at the edge of the property. "Stay close," he murmured. "The trail gets narrow in places." They rode in silence through the moonlit forest, the only sounds the steady clopping of hooves on the dirt trail and the occasional hoot of an owl. Beau kept them off the main road, following game trails and cattle paths he'd discovered during his weeks working the ranch. Olivia proved to be an excellent rider, keeping pace without complaint despite the difficult terrain. As they rode, Beau found himself glancing back at her more often than necessary, drawn by something he couldn't quite name. There was a quiet strength in her posture, a determination in the set of her jaw that spoke of a woman who knew her own mind. "You said your aunt is in San Francisco," Beau said softly as they paused to rest the horses by a small creek. "Will she truly take you in? Your father might look for you there." Olivia nodded confidently. "Aunt Alina is my mother's sister. She never approved of my father, and she's wealthy in her own right from my uncle's shipping business. She'll protect me." She hesitated, then added, "She offered to introduce me to society there. Perhaps I might even find work as a teacher or companion." "You're educated, then?" "My mother insisted upon it," Olivia replied. "Much to my father's dismay. He believes a woman needs only enough learning to run a household and entertain guests." Beau helped her dismount so the horses could drink. Their hands touched briefly, and he felt a jolt of awareness race up his arm. Olivia must have felt it too, for she quickly withdrew her hand, a flush spreading across her cheeks visible even in the moonlight. "We should reach town before dawn," Beau said, clearing his throat. "I know a widow who runs a boarding house. She's discreet and won't ask too many questions if I vouch for you." "And then you'll return to the ranch?" Olivia asked. "I gave my word to Jeremiah Holbrook," Beau confirmed. "He's a good man, caught in a difficult situation with your father." Olivia sighed. "My father has that effect on people. He sees them only as obstacles or tools to achieve his ambitions." She looked up at Beau, her eyes serious. "I truly am grateful for your help, Mr. Pritchard. I won't forget it." "Beau," he corrected gently. "Just Beau." "Beau," she repeated, her voice soft as a summer breeze. They continued their journey, the night growing colder as they descended from the foothills into the valley where Angel's camp lay nestled among the pines. The town was still sleeping when they arrived, only a few lights burning in windows, bakers preparing for the day, perhaps, or miners heading for an early shift. Beau led Olivia to a modest but well-kept house on the edge of town. A sign swinging from the porch read, "Mrs. Wilson's Boarding House, Clean Rooms, Fair Prices." Despite the early hour, a light glowed in the kitchen window. "Margaret Wilson was kind to me when I first arrived in town," Beau explained as they tied their horses to the hitching post. "Her husband was a prospector who struck it rich, then lost everything in a bad investment. After he died, she opened this place. She understands hardship and starting over." To Beau's relief, Mrs. Wilson answered his knock quickly, her gray hair in a neat braid down her back, already dressed for the day though it was not yet 5 o'clock. "Beau Pritchard," she said, raising an eyebrow at the sight of him on her porch with a disheveled young woman. "This is unexpected. Mrs. Wilson, this is Miss Olivia Raynaud," Beau said, removing his hat. "She's in need of a room until noon when the Sacramento stage departs. I can vouch for her character." The older woman's shrewd eyes took in Olivia's quality riding habit, now wrinkled and hay-strewn, and the determined set of her chin. "Running from something, are you, dear?" Olivia met her gaze steadily. "Someone, madam." "My father wishes to force me into marriage with a man I neither love nor respect." Mrs. Wilson's expression softened. "Well, that's reason enough in my book. Come in, both of you. I've just put coffee on, and there's bread from yesterday that will toast up nicely." In the warmth of Mrs. Wilson's kitchen, Beau explained the situation more fully while Olivia freshened up. The older woman listened without interruption, her lips pressing into a thin line when he mentioned Lawrence Raynaud's name. "That man," she said darkly when Beau finished. "He tried to buy this house from me last year, claimed the railroad needed the land for a depot. When I refused, he arranged for the town council to raise my property taxes." She shook her head. "Don't worry about Miss Raynaud. I'll see she gets on that stage safely." Beau felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilson." When Olivia returned, her face washed and her hair neatly braided, Mrs. Wilson served them a simple but hearty breakfast. As they ate, the sky outside began to lighten, the first birds greeting the dawn. "I should get back," Beau said reluctantly, pushing away his empty plate. "Jeremiah will be wondering where I am." Olivia's face fell slightly, but she nodded. "Of course. You've done more than enough already." Mrs. Wilson tactfully excused herself to prepare a room, leaving them alone in the kitchen. "When you reach San Francisco," Beau said, "send word to me through Mrs. Wilson that you arrived safely. I'll worry otherwise." "I will," Olivia promised. She hesitated, then reached into a hidden pocket in her riding habit and withdrew a small object. "I want you to have this. As thanks." She pressed it into his palm, a delicate silver locket on a fine chain. Beau opened it to find a miniature painting of a flower inside. "It was my mother's," Olivia explained. "A forget-me-not. It seems appropriate." Beau closed his fingers around the token, oddly moved by the gesture. "I couldn't possibly, please," she insisted. "I have few possessions that are truly mine, but this is one of them. I want you to have it." Their eyes met, and in that moment, Beau felt something shift inside him, like a key turning in a lock he hadn't known existed. Impulsively, he took her hand and raised it to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss against her knuckles. "Be safe, Olivia Raynaud," he murmured. A blush stained her cheeks, but she didn't pull her hand away. "And you, Beau Pritchard." The ride back to the ranch was solitary and thoughtful. Beau led Daisy behind him, having explained to Mrs. Wilson that he would return later to retrieve the mare. The morning sun climbed higher, burning away the mist that clung to the valley floor. By the time he reached the rocking H, the ranch was fully awake, hands going about their morning chores. Jeremiah met him at the barn, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. "Found your note." "Everything all right?" "Yes, sir," Beau said, dismounting. "Sorry for the early departure. Had some personal business to attend to." The older man nodded, though his eyes remained questioning. "Well, you're back just in time. Raynaud's raising hell this morning. His daughter's still missing, and now he's accusing us of hiding her." Beau's stomach tightened. "What makes him think that?" "Phillips claims he saw fresh hay disturbed in the loft, says someone was hiding there." Jeremiah shook his head. "They're searching the property again. Martha's fit to be tied at the intrusion." Before Beau could respond, Lawrence Raynaud himself stormed into the barn, followed closely by Phillips. The railroad man's face was flushed with anger, his expensive suit rumpled from a night of restless sleep. "You," he snapped, pointing at Beau. Where have you been this morning?" Beau straightened to his full height, meeting the man's gaze coolly. "Riding to town and back, had some personal business." "What a coincidence," Raynaud sneered. "My daughter disappears and you suddenly have personal business in town." "Phillips here thinks you might know more than you're letting on." Phillips stepped forward, hand resting on his gun belt. "The hayloft had been disturbed. Someone was hiding up there and you were the last one in the barn last night." Jeremiah moved to stand beside Beau. "Now hold on. Are you accusing one of my men of something?" "I'm saying he knows where my daughter is," Raynaud insisted, "and I want answers." Beau kept his expression neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never met your daughter before yesterday when you introduced her at supper. If she's run off, perhaps you should ask yourself why she felt the need to escape." Raynaud's face darkened. "How dare you? That's enough," Jeremiah interrupted firmly. "Mr. Raynaud, I've allowed you to search my property out of courtesy, but I draw the line at you harassing my employees with baseless accusations. If you can't be civil, I'll have to ask you to leave." For a tense moment, it seemed Raynaud might explode with rage. Then, with visible effort, he composed himself. "Very well, Holbrook, but this isn't over." He turned to Phillips. "Saddle our horses. We're returning to town." After they left the barn, Jeremiah gave Beau a long, searching look. "Is there something I should know, son?" Beau hesitated, torn between his loyalty to his employer and his promise to Olivia. "I believe a young woman has the right to choose her own husband," he finally said. "That's all I'll say on the matter." Understanding dawned in Jeremiah's eyes. He nodded slowly. "Fair enough. Best get to work, then. Those fences on the north ridge won't mend themselves." The remainder of the morning passed in a haze of physical labor, Beau throwing himself into his work to avoid thinking about Olivia and whether she had safely boarded the stagecoach. By noon, Raynaud and Phillips had departed the ranch, bound for town exactly where Olivia would be waiting for the stage. Beau's anxiety grew as the hours passed. Had Raynaud found his daughter? Had he prevented her from boarding the stage? The questions tormented him as he worked, until finally, unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, he approached Jeremiah. "I need to ride back to town," he said without preamble. "There's something I need to check on." Jeremiah studied him thoughtfully. "This wouldn't have anything to do with a certain young lady who might be attempting to leave town today, would it?" Beau didn't bother denying it. "Yes, sir. I'm concerned her father might have intercepted her." To his surprise, Jeremiah smiled slightly. Martha figured as much. "She never did like Lawrence Raynaud, even before he came around trying to buy our land." He waved a hand. "Go on, then. Just be careful. Raynaud's not the type to take defeat gracefully." Beau rode hard into town, pushing midnight faster than was wise on the rocky trails. It was well past noon when he finally reached Angel's camp, the stagecoach depot, his first destination. His heart sank when he saw Raynaud's carriage outside the depot, the man himself pacing angrily on the boardwalk while Phillips lounged nearby. There was no sign of the stagecoach or Olivia. Keeping his distance, Beau dismounted outside the general store and casually approached a young boy sweeping the porch. "Stage been through today?" he asked, flipping the boy a penny. The boy caught the coin with a grin. "Yes, sir. Left about an hour ago, headed for Sacramento." Relief flooded through Beau. "Was it full?" "Near about," the boy confirmed. "Had some fancy gentleman raising a fuss about one of the passengers, but Mr. Johnson, he runs the depot, wouldn't delay departure." So Raynaud had arrived too late to stop the stage, but had Olivia been on it? Beau needed to know for certain. He made his way to Mrs. Wilson's boarding house, taking a circuitous route to avoid being spotted by Raynaud or his man. The widow opened the door at his knock, a knowing smile on her face. "She got away," Mrs. Wilson said without preamble, ushering him inside. That father of hers showed up about 20 minutes before the stage was due, demanding to search my house. I told him I had paying guests who valued their privacy and that he needed a sheriff's warrant to go through my rooms. Beau let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. And Olivia. Mrs. Wilson's smile widened. Smart girl, that one. When she heard her father's voice, she slipped out the back way and took a different route to the depot. By the time Raynaud thought to check there, she was already aboard with the doors locked. The driver's an old friend of my late husband. He made sure no one delayed their departure. Thank God, Beau murmured, removing his hat and running a hand through his hair. Did she leave any message for me? Just this. Mrs. Wilson handed him a folded piece of paper. She wrote it in a hurry. The note was brief, written in an elegant hand. Dearest B, I am safely away. Will write from SF with Aunt Alina's address. Thank you for being my rescuer when I needed one most. Yours. Beau read the note twice, his thumb tracing the word dearest before carefully folding the paper and tucking it into his shirt pocket next to the silver locket. She's a special young woman, Mrs. Wilson observed, watching him closely. Yes, Beau agreed simply. She is. Her father's still in town, raising Cain at the hotel, the widow continued. Threatening to have the stage stopped at the next town, though I doubt he'll succeed. He's also offering a reward for information about who helped her escape. Beau frowned. I should stay scarce then. Might be wise, Mrs. Wilson agreed. At least until he gives up and returns to Sacramento. But Lawrence Raynaud did not give up easily. In the weeks that followed, he made several more visits to Angel's Camp and the surrounding ranches, convinced that someone in the area had aided his daughter's flight. Each time, he brought more men with him, and each time his questions grew more pointed, his manner more threatening. The promised letter from Olivia arrived 3 weeks after her departure, delivered to Mrs. Wilson, who then passed it to Beau. It was longer this time, full of descriptions of San Francisco's bustling streets and her aunt's elegant home overlooking the bay. Aunt Alina had welcomed her with open arms and was already introducing her to society. I think of you often, Olivia wrote near the end, and wonder if you still carry my mother's locket. I find myself hoping that our paths might cross again someday, though I know it is perhaps foolish to dwell on such brief acquaintance. Beau wrote back that same night, his penmanship nowhere near as refined as hers, but his words heartfelt. He told her about life on the ranch, about Raynaud's continued pursuit, about the way he found himself looking for golden hair and brave eyes in every crowd when he rode into town. Their correspondence continued through the autumn and into winter. Each letter from Olivia revealed more of her character, her intelligence, her wit, her kindness. She wrote of taking piano lessons and attending lectures at a women's educational society, of helping her aunt with charitable work among the city's poor. Beau, in turn, shared stories of his life that he'd never told anyone else: his childhood on a struggling Texas ranch, his years of drifting after his father's death, his dreams of someday having land of his own. With each exchange, the connection between them deepened, transcending their brief physical meeting. In January, a heavy snowstorm blanketed the foothills around Angel's Camp, making travel difficult and ranch work treacherous. It was during this time that Jeremiah suffered a bad fall while checking on livestock, breaking his leg in 2 places. With the ranch owner bedridden, Beau took on additional responsibilities, working from dawn until well after dark to keep the operation running smoothly. Martha, grateful for his dedication, insisted he join them for supper each night in the main house. It was during one of these meals, as February's chill gave way to the first hints of spring, that Martha broached a subject Beau had been considering himself. "You should go see her," she said matter-of-factly, passing him a bowl of stew. Beau looked up, startled. "Madam, that Raynaud girl," Martha clarified, her eyes twinkling. "Olivia. Mrs. Wilson tells me you've been writing to each other all winter." Beside her, Jeremiah chuckled at Beau's embarrassed expression. "No secrets in a small town, son." Beau cleared his throat. "I've thought about it," he admitted. "But the ranch can manage without you for a week or two," Jeremiah finished for him. "Joe and Frank know what they're doing, and we've hired on 2 new hands since winter set in. Besides," Martha added, "I've never seen a man more in need of following his heart. Those letters of hers are the only thing that puts a smile on your face these days." Beau couldn't deny it. The truth was, he'd fallen in love with Olivia Raynaud through her letters, through the glimpses of her soul she shared with each carefully penned page. He carried her locket always, a tangible reminder of the brave young woman who trusted him when she had no reason to do so. "Her father is still looking for her," he reminded them. "If I go to San Francisco, I might lead him straight to her." "Lawrence Raynaud has bigger problems now," Jeremiah said with satisfaction. "Haven't you heard? There's talk of a federal investigation into some of the railroad's land acquisition practices. Seems they weren't always as legal as they should have been." This was news to Beau. "Is that why he stopped coming around?" Martha nodded. "According to Mrs. Wilson, whose cousin works at the Sacramento hotel where Raynaud stays, he's been summoned to testify before some government commission. His influence is waning rapidly." "Then perhaps it is time I paid a visit to San Francisco," Beau said slowly, hope blooming in his chest. A week later, dressed in his best clothes, which were still modest by city standards, Beau stood on the deck of a riverboat making its way toward San Francisco Bay. He'd written ahead to Olivia, telling her of his plans to visit, but had received no reply before his departure, the mail being notoriously unreliable during the spring thaw. San Francisco was unlike any place Beau had ever seen. The city rose dramatically from the waterfront, buildings of stone and brick climbing the steep hills in defiance of gravity. Ships from around the world crowded the harbor, and people of every nationality thronged the busy streets. Clutching the address Olivia had provided, Beau hired a hack to take him to Russian Hill, where her aunt's home was located. The driver raised an eyebrow at the destination. "Fancy neighborhood, mister. You sure they're expecting you?" "I hope so," Beau replied honestly. Eleanor Preston's home proved to be an elegant 3-story Victorian, its white painted trim and blue shutters pristine against the backdrop of the bay below. Beau paid the driver and approached the front door, suddenly aware of his calloused hands and sun-weathered face. A uniformed maid answered his knock, her expression carefully neutral as she took in his appearance. "May I help you, sir?" "My name is Beau Pritchard," he said, removing his hat. "I'm here to see Miss Olivia Raynaud if she's available." The maid's eyebrows rose slightly. "One moment, please." She closed the door, leaving Beau standing awkwardly on the porch. Several minutes passed before the door opened again. This time, an elegant older woman stood there, her silver-streaked dark hair arranged fashionably, her silk dress speaking of wealth and taste. "Mr. Pritchard," she said, studying him intently. "I am Eleanor Preston, Olivia's aunt. She has told me a great deal about you." Beau straightened his shoulders, meeting her gaze directly. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Preston. I hope my visit isn't inconvenient." A slight smile touched the woman's lips. "On the contrary, please come in." The interior of the house was as impressive as its exterior, polished wood floors, crystal chandeliers, and artwork that even Beau's untrained eye could recognize as valuable. Mrs. Preston led him to a sunlit parlor overlooking a garden. "Olivia is not at home at present," she informed him, gesturing for him to sit. She volunteers at the Children's Hospital on Wednesdays, but I expect her return within the hour. Beau perched uneasily on the edge of a brocade settee. I should have sent word ahead of my arrival. My last letter may not have reached her in time. Actually, it did, Mrs. Preston replied, seating herself across from him. Olivia was quite affected by the news of your visit. She paused, studying him with shrewd eyes. My niece has flourished since coming to live with me, Mr. Pritchard. She has made friends, pursued her education, and begun to heal from the years under her father's thumb. I'm glad to hear it, Beau said sincerely. She deserves every happiness. Indeed, Mrs. Preston's gaze remained penetrating. Which is why I must ask, what are your intentions toward my niece? The directness of the question caught Beau off guard. He began, then stopped, gathering his thoughts. Mrs. Preston, I care deeply for your niece. Our acquaintance began unusually, but through our correspondence, I've come to know her mind and heart in a way I've never known anyone else's. He met the older woman's eyes squarely. I came to San Francisco to see if what we've built through letters might have a chance to grow into something more, face to face. Mrs. Preston nodded slowly. A candid answer. I appreciate that. She leaned forward slightly. You should know that Olivia has received several offers of marriage since arriving in San Francisco. She has refused them all. Before Beau could respond to this revelation, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the house, followed by a familiar voice calling, Aunt Alina, I'm home. Beau rose to his feet, his heart pounding. Mrs. Preston smiled at his reaction and called out in the parlor, Dear, you have a visitor. Footsteps approached, and then Olivia appeared in the doorway. She wore a simple blue walking dress, her golden hair pinned up beneath a modest hat. At the sight of Beau, she froze, her eyes widening. Beau, she breathed, one gloved hand rising to her throat. You're really here. In that moment, seeing her again after months of imagining her face while reading her words, Beau knew with absolute certainty that the feelings he developed through their correspondence were real and true. Olivia Raynaud had captured his heart completely. Hello, Olivia, he said softly. Mrs. Preston rose gracefully. I believe I have some correspondence to attend to. I'll leave you two to get reacquainted. With a meaningful look at her niece, she glided from the room, closing the door behind her. For a moment after her departure, neither Beau nor Olivia spoke. They simply looked at each other, drinking in the sight that letters had denied them for months. Your last letter said you might visit, Olivia finally said, removing her hat and gloves with slightly trembling fingers. But I hardly dared believe it would be so soon. I couldn't wait any longer, Beau admitted. Your letters, they've become the brightest part of my days. A blush colored her cheeks. And yours mine. She moved closer, her eyes searching his face. You look just as I remembered, though perhaps a bit more tanned. And you're even more beautiful than my memory held, Beau replied honestly. Olivia's blush deepened, but she smiled. How long can you stay in San Francisco? A week, perhaps 2, Beau said. Jeremiah insisted I take enough time to. Well, to be sure. Sure of what? Olivia asked softly, though her eyes suggested she already knew the answer. Beau took a deep breath and reached into his pocket, withdrawing the silver locket she had given him months before. This has been my constant companion since the day you placed it in my hand, he said, opening it to reveal the painted forget-me-not. I've carried it as a reminder of a brave young woman who trusted a stranger with her freedom and her future. He took a step closer, close enough to catch the faint scent of lavender that he remembered from that night in the hayloft. Through your letters, I've come to know that young woman's mind, her intelligence, her compassion, her strength. and in knowing her I've fallen in love with her, completely and without reservation." Olivia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Oh, Beau," she whispered. "I know I'm just a cowboy," he continued, his voice low and earnest. "I have little to offer someone like you, no fortune, no fancy education. But I love you, Olivia Ray not. And if you could see your way to giving me a chance to prove that love in person, rather than just on paper." He got no further. Olivia closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his in a kiss that, while modest, conveyed feelings as deep and true as his own. When she drew back, her cheeks were flushed but her eyes were clear and certain. "I fell in love with a man who risked everything to help a stranger in need," she said softly. "A man whose letters revealed a soul as beautiful as it is honorable. I don't care about fortunes or fancy educations, Beau. I care about you." Joy unlike anything Beau had ever known flooded through him. He drew her into his arms, holding her close as if afraid she might disappear. "Then I'm the luckiest man alive," he murmured against her hair. The week that followed was the happiest of Beau's life. Olivia showed him San Francisco through her eyes, the bustling markets, the quiet parks, the magnificent views from the city's many hills. They walked along the waterfront, watching ships from distant ports unload exotic cargoes. They attended a concert in a grand hall where Olivia's gloved hand remained tucked securely in his throughout the performance. In the evenings, they sat in Aunt Alina's garden, talking for hours about their hopes and dreams, about the future they might build together. Beau spoke of his desire to have land of his own someday, a modest ranch where he could raise horses. Olivia shared her interest in education, her hope to perhaps teach children to read and write. "I could teach on the ranch," she said one evening, nestled beside him on a stone bench as twilight painted the garden in shades of purple and gold. "Or in a nearby town, we could build a life that combines both our dreams. You'd really consider leaving San Francisco?" Beau asked, amazed by her willingness to adapt her vision to include his. "Your aunt, your friends here." Olivia smiled up at him. "San Francisco has been a haven, a place to heal and grow, but it's not home, not really." She touched his face gently. "I think home might be wherever you are." On the final night before his planned departure, Beau joined Olivia and her aunt for a formal dinner. Mrs. Preston had invited several friends, creating a small but elegant gathering. To Beau's surprise, he found himself enjoying the company of these cultured city dwellers, particularly a retired sea captain who shared fascinating tales of voyages to China and Japan. After dinner, while the other guests were engaged in conversation over coffee in the drawing room, Beau asked Mrs. Preston for a private word. She led him to her late husband's study, a handsome room lined with books and nautical instruments. "I believe I know what you wish to discuss, Mr. Pritchard," she said once they were seated. "And I want you to know that I have observed you carefully this past week." Beau nodded, unsurprised by her scrutiny. "And what have you concluded, madam?" "That you love my niece sincerely," she replied promptly. "That you treat her with respect and kindness, that you listen when she speaks and value her opinions." A small smile touched her lips. "All rarities in men of any social station, I assure you." "Then I hope you won't object to what I'm about to ask," Beau said, gathering his courage. "Mrs. Preston, I would like your blessing to ask for Olivia's hand in marriage." The older woman's expression remained measured. "Marriage is a serious proposition, Mr. Pritchard. What can you offer my niece in terms of security and comfort?" It was a fair question, one Beau had anticipated. "I've saved nearly every dollar I've earned over the past 6 years," he explained. "It's enough for a modest, start a small parcel of land, a cabin, some livestock. Jeremiah Holbrook has offered me a partnership track at the Rocking H with the potential to buy into the ranch over time. He leaned forward earnestly. I can't promise Olivia the luxury she's known here, but I can promise to work every day of my life to give her comfort, security, and happiness. Mrs. Preston studied him for a long moment before responding. My late husband was a ship's carpenter when I met him, she finally said. My family objected strenuously to the match, insisting I could do better. But I saw in him qualities that mattered far more than social position or wealth: integrity, ambition, and a good heart. She smiled fully now. I've seen those same qualities in you, Mr. Pritchard. You have my blessing and my respect. Relief and gratitude washed over Beau. Thank you, Mrs. Preston. I promise you won't regret your faith in me. Later that night, beneath a star-filled sky on the terrace overlooking the bay, Beau knelt before Olivia and asked her to be his wife. Her joyful acceptance, sealed with tears and kisses, marked the beginning of their shared journey. They were married 2 months later in San Francisco, a small but elegant ceremony in Annalina's garden. To everyone's surprise, Lawrence Raynaud made no attempt to interfere. The federal investigation into railroad land practices had indeed diminished his influence, and according to rumors, he had departed for the East Coast to escape potential prosecution. After the wedding, Beau and Olivia returned to Angel's Camp, where Jeremiah and Martha Holbrook welcomed the bride with open arms and a wedding gift that left the newlyweds speechless: the deed to a small parcel of land adjoining the Rocking H, complete with a newly built cabin. Consider it an investment in my new partner, Jeremiah explained gruffly when Beau protested the generosity. Besides, Martha insists we need young folks around to liven the place up. That first year brought challenges as well as joys. Olivia, accustomed to city living, had much to learn about ranch life, from managing a household with limited resources to riding for hours through rough country to help with cattle drives. But she approached each new task with determination and humor, winning the respect of everyone at the Rocking H. For his part, Beau worked harder than ever, dividing his time between the main ranch and their small homestead, where he gradually built up a modest herd of horses, specializing in breeding and training quality mounts for ranchers and lawmen throughout the region. By their second anniversary, Pritchard Horse Farm had gained a reputation for producing some of the finest horses in the county. The small cabin had been expanded to a comfortable home, with a dedicated room for Olivia's growing library, and the small school she operated 3 days a week for ranch children and others from nearby properties. It was on that anniversary that Olivia shared news that filled Beau with wonder and trepidation in equal measure. They would be welcoming a child in the spring. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and on a bright April morning in 1877, William Jeremiah Pritchard entered the world, a healthy boy with his mother's golden hair and his father's blue eyes. 2 years later, the family welcomed a daughter, Elena Martha, completing their happiness. The children grew strong and lively in the fresh air and freedom of ranch life, surrounded by horses, cattle, and the natural beauty of the California foothills. On a warm summer evening in 1880, as the family sat on the porch of their home watching the sunset paint the distant mountains in shades of amber and gold, 7-year-old Will asked the question children inevitably ask of their parents: "How did you and Mama meet?" Beau glanced at Olivia, who smiled and nodded, adjusting little Ellie on her lap. "Well, son," he began, "it's quite a story. I was checking on the horses one night and I heard something up in the hayloft." As Beau recounted their unusual first meeting, carefully edited for young ears, Olivia watched him with eyes full of love and remembered gratitude. The silver locket with its forget-me-not still hung around his neck, a constant reminder of that fateful night when a cowboy found a young woman hidden in a hayloft, and she put a finger to her lips and whispered, "Please don't tell." That simple act of trust and courage had changed both their lives forever, leading them on a journey neither could have imagined, from a desperate flight for freedom to a love that grew through written words and blossomed into a family and a future built together, day by day, season by season, with unwavering devotion and enduring love. As the stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky, Beau reached for Olivia's hand, their fingers intertwining in a gesture as familiar and necessary as breathing. They had weathered storms together, celebrated victories, mourned losses, and through it all, their love had only deepened and strengthened. The hayloft where they first met still stood on the Rocking H Ranch, now run primarily by Timothy Holbrook after his father's retirement. Sometimes, when visiting their old friends, Beau and Olivia would exchange a private smile at the sight of it, their own secret monument to beginnings, to courage, to trust placed in a stranger who became beloved. "And that's how it happened," Beau concluded his story, ruffling Will's hair affectionately. "Your mother was the bravest woman I'd ever met and the most beautiful. And your father," Olivia added softly, "was the most honorable man I'd ever known, still is." Will considered this solemnly. "So you hid in hay and Pa helped you escape, and then you fell in love by writing letters." "That's right," Olivia confirmed. The boy wrinkled his nose. "That's not very exciting. Uncle Timothy said you fought off bandits together." Beau chuckled. "Uncle Timothy has a flair for exaggeration. But I'll tell you something. Son, true love doesn't always need bandits and gunfights. Sometimes it's found in quieter moments, like trusting someone enough to whisper 'please don't tell' and having that trust honored." As darkness settled fully over their land, Beau and Olivia Pritchard sat contentedly surrounded by the family they had built together, their hearts full with the knowledge that sometimes the greatest adventures and the truest love stories begin in the most unexpected places, like a hayloft on a moonlit night in the wild heart of California.